Okay, so what we're going to do today is have a look at how we import data into a LibreOffice database. So when I open LibreOffice, I get this window over here, and what we want to do is create a new database. So I go to Create, and I create a new database. I can leave all these defaults. I go next. I leave all those defaults as well. We have to allow it to register our database, and we do want to open that database for editing. When we're finished, we say finish. We give our database a name. So this is a difference between databases and other things, is that we save our database at the beginning of the process, not at the end. So I'm going to go and save my database. You know what? I don't want to put a full stop in the database name. Okay, so I'm now in my database program, and I have the option to create tables, queries, forms, and reports, either using a design view or a wizard view. Now, for tables and for queries, I will use design view. For forms and reports, I can use a wizard. But as a general rule, remember that all my data goes into the table. That's what stores the data. And everything else is just a way of viewing that data or inputting that data or outputting that data. So tables is where I want to be, and I want to create a new table in design view. Now I'm going to possibly have to skip ahead a little bit, because sometimes in the exam, things in the exam, they ask you first to import the data and then tell you what data types need to be in that table. And that works if you were using Microsoft Office. But for LibreOffice, we first have to set up the table and then import the data into that table afterwards. So we're going to go and find what field names we need, and we're going to go and add those to our table. And we're going to make sure that we change the data types as we go. It is very important that we choose the correct data types in the step. If we import all the data as text and then try to change the data types afterwards, we will get errors and things won't work. So you need to make sure that your data types are correct at this point. So I've got to one which is a date format. If I come down to the bottom here to the field properties area, you can see I've got several options here. So for the date field, I've got entry required. This is how I would make an entry compulsory, and that's a way of data validation, which you'll get to later. But if I wanted to force people to have to enter this piece of data, otherwise they wouldn't be able to save their information into my database, then I could make this yes. The default value, also I could add in a value which appears in the cell when I go into a new record, or when I create a new record. I could have default data sitting in there if I wanted to. I wouldn't want that for date of birth. I'm going to leave that blank. This is the important one. So if I click on these three little dots here, they're called an ellipse. What I can then get is a whole lot of different kinds of field formats. So this one I want to be date, and I want it to be down the bottom here, month, day, year. That is how I'm going to import the data in the spreadsheet that I have, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so that's all good. I want to leave that date in that format. Now, a gender field is often imported as a Boolean, because there are, of course, only two possibilities. But for this particular database, they've asked me not to do that. So they've asked me to leave it as text. I'm going to do that. But I do have a field here which is called own. And own is going to indicate whether or not I have my own instrument, yes or no. And okay, we're going to have to just fix our data set a little bit with respect to that. Okay, so we want a number here which doesn't have any decimal places. There you can see our decimal places are at 0. But this one, cost week, is actually going to be a currency value. And you'll see from the list there is no currency there. So what we do is we choose double, and down the bottom here again we go and click on where the ellipses are, and we'll see there we have currency, and that currency we could set to something. Now usually in the exam they will ask you for either pounds or euros, so you can go and let's turn it into pounds for today. We can go and search. Why can't I see? Maybe it says British pounds. That's a bit silly. Some other reason I can't find it. Ah, there it is. UK pounds. Okay. It doesn't really matter which of the different pounds. Oh, it's changed itself to Irish. It doesn't actually matter. It's still the same symbol, so it doesn't make any difference. Great stuff. And then the last one says notes, which is a text field. Okay, so once we have all our fields set up as they are in the book, we will then go and save our table, and when we do that, we will be prompted for a primary key. So LibreOffice really wants you to make a primary key. So let's use, because we do have a field in our database that can be used as a primary key, we're going to do that. So we're going to say cancel, and just before we go and save this database, we're going to make this admission number, or whatever this number is up the top here. This is going to be the key field, and it says so in our instructions. So we can safely make that the key field. We're going to right click there and say primary key, sorry. Okay, and then when we save it, we should not get any errors coming up. Fantastic. Okay, so now I can close that, and there is my table over there. If I double click on that table now, I will be able to edit it. If I hadn't made the primary key, it doesn't let me put anything in there. So that's why for LibreOffice, you have to have that primary key. Also note those two fields where we made them yes, no fields, they've now got a little tick box in there, and that can be ticked. Now I've just made a mistake because now it wants me to go and add some data. So I'm going to have to just undo that. So there's nothing in there. Right, so I'm going to close that. Fantastic.